Hey everyone, Kyle here. Welcome back to the Climbing Majority podcast, where Max and I sit down with living legends, professional athletes, certified guides, and recreational climbers alike to discuss the topics, lessons, stories, and experiences found in the life of a climber. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Hey everyone. As I'm sure you are now aware, it is with a heavy heart that we mourn the loss of Cody Bradford this week. His death came as quite a surprise to everyone, I'm pretty sure. We had him on the podcast only a couple months ago, and nothing would have prepared me or Max for this sudden loss. And I feel like I just wanted to create a space for his remembrance because he had such an impact on everyone in the climbing community. There is a Reddit thread memorial that I will post a link to where you can go and share your personal experience with him and how he affected your life. So please go do that and just spread the love and show just how much he meant to us. For me personally, I reached out to him very early on in my climbing career as a budding trad climber, just full of stoke and full of questions. And he was just so very kind and open to chatting with me and forming some sort of pseudo mentor-esque relationship with him over the years. We even had a couple phone calls with him about being a guide. And he has always just been so open and so willing to just give himself to everyone around him in terms of climbing knowledge and sharing stoke. So that's how he affected my life. Such a great guy, such a huge loss for the climbing community. And I just wanted to create a little space for him. So maybe just let's have a quick moment of silence for Cody Bradford. All right. Thank you so much, Cody Bradford. You will be missed. Okay. In today's episode, we sit down with Catherine Pitura, an ACMG Apprentice rock guide and the founder of Mind Tools. Catherine, as she puts it, is just a person with a big climbing experience. She, like so many of us, fell quickly in love with the sport of climbing. But unlike many of us, she had the opportunity to live the dirtbag dream. For 9 years, she lived and breathed climbing. During this time, she developed herself into a capable trad leader and a certified apprentice rock guide. But towards the end of this 9-year climbing cycle, she started to feel like there were things about her life and herself that had been neglected. That there might be more to life than being fully immersed in climbing. So she began her Dirtbag Rehab, where she journeyed back into everyday life and worked on exploring the intricacies of the human mind. Now, she has combined her experience as a climber and the knowledge she obtained through her Dirtbag Rehab into a business called The Conscious Climber and has developed an innovative product named Mind Tools. In our conversation, we dive deep into what it's like to return to life after living the dirtbag dream, the effect that climbing has on the mind, the relationship between our conscious and subconscious minds, and finally, how we can use mind tools to help us stay present, calm, and collected while in the vertical world. Catherine, you reached out to Max, right? That's how this conversation started here?
I did. I like to take action sometimes. I get the inspiration to just make a move. And this was the move I chose, yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, you were the first guest that ever reached out to us, actually. So normally it's us just networking through like Instagram and social media and other places.
So yeah, to all you out there, if you have an awesome story and you feel like you want to say something, please reach out to us.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so generally we kind of just go through like a process of, obviously we just do like some brief introductions and stuff, and I think for the audience, like they know who Kyle and I are, so it probably makes more sense to kind of just start off with you, like like go through your name and a little bit about yourself, and we can kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, my name's Catherine. I'm just a person with a big climbing experience, like and like part of me connecting is just because I like what you guys are doing about, keeping it real and bringing the human aspects to the 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 culture and the community. And so yeah, like I just basically spent all my 20s climbing like full time, and um, there's just no one I can really talk about my experiences with that are really gonna get it, like you guys and like your audience and things like that. So I love sharing because there is so much that we learn in it, right? We're fully immersed in nature, and climbing is just it's epic. There's nothing really like else like it. So anyway, so yeah, I climbed for a long time. I went through some guide training and got to teach a bit, like in Squamish and Penticton and stuff. And um, I've kind of moved away from it a little bit now, but I've been focusing on, my product, mind tools, and things like that. Not that that's a total plug, but that's just what it changed to, right? My focus changed from full climbing to sort of product development and things like that, which I got really excited and passionate about, just like I do with all the things I get into. So yeah, that's pretty much me.
How did you come across climbing?
I was introduced to it in high school when I was in this program called Earth Quest in the Okanagan in BC. And yeah, we were introduced to all these different mountain sports in a school based program, like telemark skiing, cross country skiing, like on glaciers and stuff. And we kayaked the Gulf Islands, rode our bikes everywhere, and ran, and like all these kind of things. And climbing was one of the sports that they introduced us to. And like I remember being a shy kid, but for some reason when they asked who wanted to go first on the rappel, I was like, me. Like I just like was all about it right from the start. So that was my introduction, but I didn't get back into it till so I was like 16 then, and then I got back into it when I moved to Vancouver, which was like the big city. And I was about 20, about 20-ish when I got reintroduced to the sport. And that's when I really just did the
Uh-huh.
full obsessed mode cycle of my life with it.
Yeah, that's super cool that you had that little brief introduction early on, and then were able to revisit again in a new light. I've personally not heard that kind of story before, where there's like a little bit of exposure and then a full hiatus. So that's pretty interesting. Did you start climbing outside right away on the second chapter?
I met a guy at that time in Vancouver named Jesse, and we connected. Like, we would just go out for dinners and things like that. But then we soon got into climbing. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in the summer. And I think we went from Vancouver straight up to Squamish. And he was already getting lessons at that time with like Sunny Trotter or whomever was like teaching at the time. And we just, so he was like, Jesse was getting super into it. And, he would always just invite me along as, partners do, right? It's a fantastic sport for whatever kind of relationship dynamic you've got going on. But yeah, so I think I started outdoors in that fall, and then climbed indoors like all winter, and then it just pretty much took off from there.
Did you from that point? Did you
Super
like when
cool.
did you commit to being a dirtbag? Or
Well,
I mean, take that phrase how you will. It seems like the coined term these days.
I think it's a compliment.
dirtbag is like, to me, it's like you're all of a sudden all your focus goes into your progression within the sport, right? Like
Yes, absolutely.
dirtbag's like a state of mind where you're just looking out one particular window, and that window looks at climbing. And
Exactly.
so like, yeah, I think once you try it, like for the people that it really connects with, it's just so stimulating, right? Like climbing is so it's a puzzle. It's totally 100% engaging. It's like it's working your mind, it's working your body, it's working, it's social. Like everything about it I craved, and I was just eating it up, right? Like I just fully just I was soaking it all in. And so yeah, I think I just I went dirtbag mode pretty quick.
Do you consider yourself more introverted or extroverted?
Introverted.
Well, I was just saying, do you consider yourself more like introverted? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like more climbers are introverted in general because there's like some solace in spending time in the mountains and like being alone and constantly projecting and devoting all of your time to this kind of craft. But I could be wrong. Like, Kyle, do you consider yourself introverted or extroverted?
I'd say like at my core, I'm an introvert for sure.
I'm very social too, and like I love people and things like that. But like
it's a skill though.
Being social.
Yeah, for me, it's a skill. It's not natural. It's a skill.
Yeah.
Something I have to practice.
Yeah, I view it the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think that's why it really speaks to introverts climbing, because it's so internal. Like it's the way the movement is, the way that you're looking through a crux sequence. A lot of it is very intuitive, but it's balanced because it's also very logical when you're learning, anchors and all the like the technical stuff, the rock rescue, all that kind of rope work is very logical, right? Right-brained or whatever it is, the male side, but it's also very intuitive in terms of the movement, in terms of route finding, in terms of choosing your objective or whatever the case. Belaying is really intuitive, I think, too. So yeah, I think it speaks to introverts just because it's very lively in your inner world, I would say.
What is your experience with flow state?
For me to get into a flow state, it's like, maybe this is a more sort of advanced version that I found for myself later on, but like, I need to make sure my life is in order and I don't have a lot of emotional or internal baggage going on. Like when I feel like at peace with my life, that things are in order and I'm climbing, I'm better able to get in a flow state because I'm really present and I don't have like things in the way of my presence and my attention. But yeah, flow state's amazing because when you're climbing, because you're in alignment, there's no interference going on. You know where you want to go, and there's no like static or noise in the head or anything like that, and you're just feeling all the aliveness of all the nature all around you, and like I love that.
How do you feel about using or how do you feel is probably the wrong way to phrase it, but so for me, sometimes I fight with the process of like climbing is both like a pleasure, a pursuit, but also an escape. So through suffering and being so present and climbing, it takes me away from all of those things. And sometimes I don't even have the answer to the question, but climbing is both a pursuit and an escape. And I'm just wondering for you, was there a period where, because you're talking about like flow state and mindfulness there, essentially, is there like a period where you viewed climbing more as an escape?
I totally understand what you mean. That's like, I believe that we're always learning something. Like I say it on a soul level, like we on earth, like we come and we're learning something, right? So when you're really into something, it's because you're learning, but also that simultaneously, yes, there is that escape. So I could just say in my experience, with when I was like hardcore, dirtbag, and that was like 8 full years.
Wow.
I was learning a lot, that, that's what I call conscious climbing, was the lessons that I learned from the experience. But I had to apply what I learned to climbing to my life. So I wasn't escaping because life is going on all the time. And it's very important that we tend to everything in life. Granted, I really think there's a lot of value in the dirtbag period because truly we're learning a lot. I think the bridge for me, so I'm not escaping life, is harvesting the lessons, like the determination, the courage, the perseverance, the inspiration, all the things that climbing, like the essence of it to me,
Hmm.
I apply that to everything in my life. So I'm not escaping life because, again, if all your energy is only going into climbing, it's okay, but other things are going to kind of wither a little bit because they're not getting your same attention. So it's all good. I mean, life's a balancing act, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I found my 8 years was an escape, and I actually lagged behind in a lot of skills when that bubble was burst, so to speak, because like I said, I had to get like basically house trained again. I had to merge back into the work world. I kind of had a unique experience. Maybe some people don't go as hard as or as immersive as I did in that experience. But yeah, it's a balance. I just say, like, back to the flow state thing. Like, just I think the best flow you're gonna find is when you know that you've taken care of your duties in your life, that things are managed, and like you're not like shirking responsibility just to like escape to the mountains,
Hmm.
but like taking what the mountains has for you and bringing it to everything in your life. If that makes sense.
You've explained a lot of the kind of pros. Like, what were there maybe a lesson or two that you learned from your time while you were there, like that you brought back to your normal life? Maybe it's two specific lessons.
From climbing to my
Yeah,
life.
like your 8 years, you referenced like the dedication and stuff. Like, are there actual like relatable things that you noticed that you brought from the sport to your life now?
Yeah, I think it's the mindset, like, um, when you're climbing, and I know that you guys, all your experience with lead climbing and everything like that, you really develop a certain head that that you can face adversity or tough things with, but you're going to make the moves and you're going to get to the summit, or you're going to get through it. So I think particularly it's just the mindset. Because like I said, when I left climbing as a dirt bag, I kind of feel like I was at the bottom, and I had to like climb my way through employment, through different types of things to like actually get my life like above water again. Because to be honest, as a dirt bag, when you're really living in your truck and you're really fucking doing that life, like, you're kind of like low key step away from like poverty style
Hmm.
welfare. I don't know how to describe it. Like, you're
Homeless.
not really, yeah, homeless. Like, so to get your life going, the engine in your life going again. And I mean, like, I'm talking home life and everything like that. To me, to make those moves to transition, I really had to use my mindset, and the mindset that was developed in climbing. And just knowing that I'm gonna like move through these things, and no matter how like kind of freaky they are, just don't get freaked out, you know?
Before you made the switch to being no longer a dirtbag, what kind of climber were you? Like, what kind of grades were you climbing? Multi-pitch routes? Are you leading? Are you soloing? Kind of round yourself out a little bit.
Okay. Not soloing. Maybe I did a little bit of that, especially in the early years when you're really naive and you don't know. But
Okay,
multi-pitch trad is my favorite.
nice.
I just I like longer days, longer routes, things like that.
Hmm.
Just grade wise, like uh I think 511 plus, maybe trad was like my hardest,
Leading?
or leading.
That's so
And
impressive. That's awesome. So good on you.
yeah, well, I mean, that's climbing lots, right? Like,
Yeah. Still
um and then 12 plus sport
awesome.
was kind of like the where I got with that.
Yeah.
But I always had fear, bad fear.
Mm.
And like that was like something that I think that we all face every time we tie in, right? Like, it's like, and So yeah, that was always like my passion, like was, sort of with where I developed with things was like, you know, um, how to sort of speak to the fear part because I mean that's such a tough nut to crack, but that was kind of a passion of mine was just sort of breaking that down a little bit, understanding it. But I think there's a lot of factors.
You had said that in reference to this fear that it started to kind of cripple you as a climber. When did that start happening, and why do you think it started to manifest itself into your mind?
Well, I think to be honest, I was living my life had a large fear component to it, and that it was manifesting in my body and in my mind and in my emotions because I was living something that had a lot of fear in it. I think my partner's lifestyle really contributed to that. I was really picking up on a lot of stuff that he might have had going on behind the scenes. And it was just like, I think I knew that I needed to face that fear and make changes in my life because I could feel it like, a lot. And so yeah, I think that's how I would describe that.
I think that's an interesting thing to chase down is like fear. And how do I think Arlo Illinger describes it as like there's two types of fear. Like one is illusory and one is like real. And in climbing, obviously, so much about it is just mastery of fear. But how do you know what is the illusory fear and what isn't? Like, how was that manifesting for you? Like in that time period, were you capable of really dissociating? You're like, something's wrong and I know it's because of X, or was it kind of more subtle and just like you didn't know what was going on?
Well, climbing's so interesting because I find fear and danger are so close, right? In not all cases, but sometimes the line between fear and danger, fear is subjective. It's an emotional thing. It's in your own head. It differs from person to person. Danger is objective. It's like the rock's gonna fall on you. It just is like whether it's an avalanche or it's like, whatever the case is. So but I find fear and danger or like breaking a limb. Like that's
Hmm.
like, like I know both of you guys with the ankles. It's like that's like, we're really the self-preservation instinct when you're lead climbing is freaking strong. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want to injure ourselves. Um, but like but still, when you're climbing, you can tell, or at least I could tell what was the fear of the route and the fear of the sport versus the fear I was carrying, the emotional
Hmm.
baggage I was carrying from my life.
Yeah, like I think on this topic of fear, like something I'm experiencing personally in my life right now is I'm trying to really engage and get back into climbing and get back to where I was and push through it. And I've really almost done it. But for myself, the night before, for example, like a multi pitch, I'm pretty in the zone and engaged and very, very stimulated in a way that I might not have used to have been. And then the morning of, I'll do like a lot of meditation and I usually listen to like the Rock Warrior Way on an audiobook and I'll get there. And I know for the first couple pitches, I'm quite like irritable and it's almost like why am I climbing, there's just so much stress and so much going on and things almost feel wrong. And I think part of that is fear from the actual aspect of, okay, like climbing is dangerous, but another portion of that is two different things. One is the fear of, okay, I cannot damage myself ever again in the way that I have already. And then the second one is more of this ego driven fear where it's like, I'm so mortified and concerned at the ramifications of, if I injure myself again, just how dumb and insignificant and terrible I will feel, if that makes sense, right? Publicly having to face the fact that I've made this mistake again and hurt myself. So I don't know. I think that's something that I've been really struggling with lately is trying to like dissociate those kind of things. And it's been hard for me to know. I know that in a moment I can really turn it on and just push through that. But I'm having a lot of doubt knowing uh, should I? Is that me just pushing through it to try and prove to myself something, or is this actually the right thing to do? If that makes sense. That's something that I've really been struggling with lately, and it's something I don't actually fully know how to grapple with, if that makes sense.
I think the funny thing is about that is that that fear and stuff can be dangerous within itself because it's taking you away from the focus of performing. And like you're afraid of injuring yourself. Like I feel the same thing in leading. I'm just like, fuck, like I do not want to mess up. But you have to, like, to lead trad, you have to almost like block that completely out. And it's like this fine dance of like, am I really under control or am I not? And it's like I don't really know sometimes anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting because like first of all, like I totally understand, but like in a different way. But um in my experience too, it's like we can't rush our healing process. With any time we have a traumatic experience, in let's say with related to climbing or within anything, it's like the healing process. It takes time, right? Even for the psychological wounds to heal and to come back like different or stronger, and it will come back different and stronger. But so I think allowing ourselves to just kind of like give the compassion of like time, just to allow that to transform, I think that's one thing. Another thing that I just find interesting, like you sort of mentioned, like dissociate, or like when I was climbing, sometimes, or it's sort of as you were describing too, Kyle, it's kind of like the fear, we almost suppress it and override it. I had to do a whole lot of unlearning about that because as a climber for so long in the suffer fast vibe, right? It's so much a suppression, and override how you feel. And like in my time away from climbing, which has almost been another whole cycle, I call a cycle almost 9 years. So I basically climbed a cycle, and then I've almost taken a cycle really away to do a lot of inner work, a lot of healing and things like that. And I had to learn how to like unsuppress my emotions. I had no idea what I felt at any time.
Wow.
Like, so it was like, so I had to learn to actually understand what I felt because everything had been so shoved down in order to override it, push through, and like succeed, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So
Totally.
yeah, it's interesting.
I think it absolutely makes sense. We were talking about the suppressing of emotions, and I know for myself, I found climbing and really got into it. Particularly, I got into endurance sports and then climbing a little bit, like and then really full on into climbing. But it was right after my mother had passed away from cancer. And there's a funny meme that I saw. It was on Instagram. It was some like picture of a caveman, and it was like me climb rock make mean head voice go away. And it's really just like a very simple meme, but on it's very very true in some ways, that and you can kind of almost just pursue climbing and avoid your emotional state or your fear or these issues and completely suppress them because you're so entrenched in the task at hand that you almost, I don't know if nirvana would be the right thing, or some state of meditation where you just, all the worries of the world just completely disappear. And that was back to my beginning point of like escapism, right? Like, is it an escape or is it a pursuit? And I feel like it's a bit of both. But I think there's, or at least in my estimation and, my thought process is climbing appeals to a lot of people because it is kind of an escape in some sense, right? Like you're just so present in the moment that you can suppress everything and just focus on the task at hand. And then you also happen, or at least I also happen to find, the beauty of the world unbelievable, and all these experiences so meaningful. It like gives purpose to me and it makes me feel whole and feel amazing. So it's kind of facilitating an emotional need through physical means, if that makes sense.
To your point, Max, I think what Catherine had said before in terms of escapism versus a pursuit, it really depends on how you're living your life outside of climbing. Um, right? It's like, if you're like procrastinating, or you're like not doing something, and maybe your subconscious or your deep part of yourself knows you need to be doing, and you're climbing, it becomes kind of this escapism. But if you have like all your ducks in a row, you're like feeding the rest in areas of your life that need to be fulfilled, and you climb, that experience becomes like a pursuit and a benefit rather than an escapism. At least that's kind of what sounded like Catherine was saying before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the magic of it too is literally it's the rock. It's the nature. It's like,
Yeah, totally.
if there is an absolute medicine and truth to being immersed in nature. And the rock, like I'm holding a rock right now because it has like an energy to it and a vibe, and like it's so stable, right? The rock is like earth, it's stable, it's immovable. And I think for me, with times of like, certainly in your young 20s, I didn't know how the world worked. I didn't know really anything. So it's like, I think the rock like really became this like symbol of stability. And then also I'm actually tuning into the vibration of like the natural world, which it like totally renews you when you're just getting, they call it like forest baths or whatever it is. Like you're just getting the whole vibe of nature, and that's a healing, and that's a teaching, and that's everything in itself. So yeah, you can never really define these things or categorize, put it in a box, because it's like all things at like once.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to like bring this back to your transferring from being a climber to plugging back into this life. What kind of job pursuits did you search in the beginning, or did you go straight to guiding right out of this?
My experience coming out of high school wasn't one of empowerment. It was actually really of disempowerment. Like I came out of high school being like, man, how am I going to survive this world? I didn't get A's. They told me that I'm like, that I can't make it essentially. Like I didn't get top grades. So like, what does that mean? I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to succeed in this world. It really, really damaged my self-esteem, my like belief in myself and everything else. So, when I came out of school, um, I went to college. Then I was like falling asleep in college because I just chose some random thing to do because that's what I thought I should do. Um, anyways,
What did you choose out of curiosity?
Physiotherapy, something or other. Like, yeah.
It's like my dream.
Well, it was like
I'm so offended right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, for what it's worth, like I love the idea of going to school later in life, like college or anything like that, like to all the young kids, because I'm going to be working in the school district coming up. Like I love teenagers, I love young kids, and like I would just, and like to my younger self too, it'd be like live, find out who you are, find out how the world works a little bit, find out your, and then go to school. Because like when I went right out of high school, like 19 or whatever, it was like there was it was just not the right time, not the right fit, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. I can relate with that.
Yeah. So then,
very relatable.
Totally. And then that's what climbing did, was help rebuild my self-esteem and help rebuild my belief in myself. Because every time you go through the learning process, you've empowered yourself. And so again, it's like that same formula, you just apply it to anything now. Once you've sort of figured out the process and the formula, now it's like, for where I'm at now, I'm 34. I just went back to school to be a teacher's assistant, like all these kinds of different things, like simple, like humble, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like, again, that's kind of really the magic and like the gifts of climbing. It's really like what it's doing to you on a deep level that you can, live with.
So you're saying you're a teacher now?
Teacher assistant. I'm going to help the kids that were kind of like me, like learned a little bit different. I'm very kinesthetic. That's why I loved the guide training. I loved making the anchors and all the rope stuff. Like I loved getting my hands involved. But like, yeah, so I'm going to be a teacher's assistant, help kids that like need a little bit of like, that learn outside the spectrum. because that's kind of like me.
And teacher's assistant, like in public school or in the outdoor activities setting, like what setting are you
Actually,
talking about?
both. In the public school, but actually, you asked how I got into climbing, and it's called EarthQuest. I just went on a trip with the EarthQuest crew. We went to Clackwood Sound off Tofino, and so I'm going to be working in the public school, but definitely I love the outdoor like school setting, and I believe I'll be helping work with that program.
I think that's really awesome. Personally, for me, I went through high school completely lost. I resonate really hard with what you were saying there because I did terrible in high school. I wasn't successful. Everything was telling me you have to go to university, you're going to be a failure, all these other things. I grew up in this very affluent society and I never even graduated high school. At grade 9, I dropped out and I went to an alternate school. And I actually had various youth workers, teacher assistants, people like that who really were very inspirational to me and really, really helped me out. And then I never went to university. And then now at the age of, I'm 28 now and around 26, I did my high school equivalency. And now I'm going to university. So I'm coming back to university later in my life. So I really, really resonate with your story. And as well for me, I've had a similar thing with climbing a slightly later in life than you at 28 rather than your 20s. But it wasn't until that I found climbing and connected with the outdoors in that way that it really started to empower me to like be who I am and to have the confidence to be who I wanted to be, having the success and, success is relative. I'm not a pro climber or anything, but getting out in the mountains and climbing these things, it empowered me and it made me feel confident and it made me feel good. And since that's been happening, I've really started coming into my own as a person and who I wanted to be and been able to pursue these kind of things in my life like I've never pursued them before. So I really resonate with what you said. I feel like I really connect with that. Yeah, really similar kind of background.
Yeah, and the outdoors is such a leveling field for students and kids and for everybody really, but like I know my time as a guide, like I'm thinking especially when I was just single pitch instructing in Skaha with Russ Turner, who's like a legend, like the best person of all time, and he's brought so many kids through climbing. And just these school groups will come and they'll have their social dynamics and everything like that, but climbing just has this way of leveling it out. Everybody supports each other, and then it's all those micro wins that are self-propelled that build our esteem. So like I said, every time we send, every time we make a hard move, every time we go beyond our capacity of what we think we can do, and it's totally self-propelled, that's just like a win in your own basket. And so it's just, it builds you up in a good way. And that's the magic of the outdoors, right? It's our natural place too. So, seeing, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but seeing the kids in the natural setting learn through sports and being in nature, it's incredible, and it touches them in a really good way.
Yeah, I could totally imagine that. I think that there's a lot of people. I think most of the stories, at least I hear, are adults that find climbing and they've had like kind of a rough go, or they've struggled with addiction, or whatever their story may be. But climbing definitely seems to bring almost a cure to their lives. And so I think that it could be so applicable to the youth as well. And I think that's awesome that we're starting to focus on bringing that to these people, because it's been super helpful for some.
For sure. Also, I think society is structured to value certain things and main, like it's structured to value certain things. And there are people who don't fit inside that structure, but who are very, very capable, amazing, great people. And when you're trying to play into this structure and it's completely against the way you are, the way your brain's wired, like you're talking about, you're a very kinesthetic learner, all of these things, it leaves you kind of in a state of despair, right? And so you can take people into these different medians or these different areas and watch them excel and watch them develop and change. And it's really influential and life-changing. And yeah, I think I would bet everybody at this table has, or their own separate tables, our digital table has experienced similar things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you before we jump into your company, the Mind Tools, I'm interested in talking a little bit about what happened within your mind in terms of your connection to yourself, your conscious and your subconscious mind. The way I understand the human brain is we have this conscious mind that is aware of what's going on around us. It's performing the daily tasks. But ultimately it's receiving information from the subconscious, and that is kind of what ultimately defines our personality, how we react to the world. And it's our job to try to connect the two parts of our mind in order to be fully aware of who we are. um, how do you relate to that kind of understanding of the mind? And it seems from what I've read that you kind of went through a process of connecting to this part of yourself. You want to kind of tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, for sure. And that's awesome. Like totally. I think that's very accurate. Like, with the conscious mind, it's just your waking mind when your eyes are open and you're doing your thing. The subconscious being the storehouse of impressions and memories and all that. So yeah, and I feel like we live out our subconscious in so many ways, right? Like, so even when I was coming out of my dirtbag era, first of all, I could even see how I like created circumstances in my life. Like it's crazy. Like sometimes you live things and you're like, man, I see how like my thoughts created the thing that I'm living.
Hmm.
Like can be glaringly obvious. So yeah, I think when I left climbing my really intensive cycle, so like I was in this relationship, it was really, you could say, codependent. I wasn't financially independent. Um so I was really sort of, I didn't have a lot of independence or sovereignty, or again it goes back to my belief in myself. I had a really like, I just didn't believe I could survive. So I was walking back to my tent one day in the Bluffs. I'm like pushing my bike up the hill. I just biked into town and got groceries, maybe had a shower. And I was coming all the way back up to the Bluffs. Not even supposed to camp there, so don't tell anybody. I'm like, put yeah.
I was gonna say,
So
yeah.
we had a camp up there for like 2 months. It was
Wow.
crazy. Like I was in a tent for like 2 months. And I was, the magic of that time too was like I was listening to so many podcasts. And this was like a while ago. This was like, 7, 8 years ago. Like things have come such a long way. It's crazy when I think of like the way in which we are so open and just talking about consciousness, all these kinds of things. Like back when I was like really getting exposed to it, or like it, yeah, finding it was not mainstream like it is now. Like it's changed a lot, and that's I mean, it just goes to show where we're at. Like, but anyways, so I'm like pushing my bike up, and then because I believe I primed my mind for an idea because of all the podcasts I listened to, all the books I read, all the journaling I did. And I was always into entrepreneurial, kind of like that spirit, because it's creative, right? Like even with this podcast, creativity is so important. Like it makes you healthy, I think, to create something of your own. It's very important.
I think it's important that people know that. At least for myself, I kind of deemed myself as not a creative person. I was just like, that was kind of a label that I accepted, and I was convinced of that. And it's just I've made,
I call bullshit.
dude, I'm serious. Like through high school, I was like math, science, physics. I was going to be a fighter pilot. Like I was military, bro, math dude, and I like broke from that entire mold and like saw out a creative side of myself. And it was there after all. So I just think it's important for anybody out there who might not think that they are creative and they are on a path of some sort. I think that everybody has some sort of creativity to them, you know, however it might manifest itself. I think there's a side to be explored there.
Yeah, I view you as a very talented, creative person, Kyle. So that's why I called bullshit.
Again, it's a skill. I have
It's
to
just
practice. It's been a long time coming, man.
Yeah. Well, it's that male female mind, or the left right brain, right? Like I had to really develop my logic and my reason in like that side of myself, because I was way more like um I'm a very much a nurturer, compassion, creativity, I guess you could say, like this sort of side, like this. So I think we're always all both sort of cultivating both sides so that we are balanced, because that's a great thing, and that's what climbing, like we talked about earlier too, is it's both
Absolutely.
logic and intuition.
Back to the conscious and subconscious mind, like you said you had an idea that was coming to you, you were at your tent.
Yeah,
You primed
yes.
yourself to an idea.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's just like boom, the conscious climber, conscious climbing. It just like came to me like really clear. And I was like, oh. And I'd been like circulating ideas for some time, try on different things. What is my fit here? And none of them stuck around, but conscious climbing has stuck with me for like 8 years. Like every day, pretty much, it's helped me develop. It's this idea, and ideas are actually alive. Like it's been proven that ideas, they they they're resonant with you, and they make you up. They light you up. They make you like a better person, actually, too. Um, so I got this idea for conscious climbing, but I was like, I was like 27 or something. I was like, I have no idea what conscious means. What the hell does conscious mean? I'm like, I know what climbing is, but I have no idea what conscious means. So literally, like within that week, I meet this guy who's like basically my soul brother. Like I just meet him. I'm like, I see him at the restaurant we always go to. Me and Jesse, we'd go for like vegan food, and I see him. My friend, he's from Poland, and he's like, we just connect right off the bat. And he's like, I'm living at this farm across from the bluffs, across the lake. It's like, you should come and visit us. And I was like, okay. So I like go over there and, meet the kind of the crew over there. And there's an amazing, like esoteric yoga teacher who's like a Shaolin priest. He's like martial artist, consciousness,
Wow.
yoga, spirituality to the max. Like, so I was like, boom, there's consciousness. Now I want to go learn. I knew what climbing was all about, but I didn't know what consciousness was about. So getting that inspirational idea come to me, and you feel it when you feel an idea, it's more important to you. It's just, to me, because like I said, I was in that relationship dynamic. I felt it was like God throwing me a rope and was like, catch this. I'm going to like just take this line. Basically was like saving me in a way, gave me this rope. I follow the inspiration for that. I end up at the spiritual school across the lake from the bluffs. And that's where I started to learn about the mind and how creative it is, how literally creative it is. Like we're literally creating based on our thoughts and everything. And which is kind of segues into my product, actually, with the mind tools. Mind tools simply means mantra. All the words I chose, these are slip covers for the gear. The intention is to reduce fear and to give you the good vibe, like the spirit, so that you can you're going to create on a higher, like in a good way, instead of like the fear. It's like everything about them is to help, like um just so that you can create better, and also bridge everything we're learning in climbing, all the essence of it, with the everyday life, so that you can take the lessons from climbing and start living them. And so it's like there's a whole bunch of little like benefits. And so yeah, that's kind of like what I learned. That's the most important thing I learned from my time at the school. I mean, I learned a lot, but really it was just like the self-awareness of my own thinking in my own mind.
What are some specific things that you practiced in order to gain more understanding of your mind and your relationship between these two parts we were talking about? Like, was there anything that he taught you specifically and that you've carried on into your life?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the obvious one to me is like, that our physical body, our emotional body, and our mental body, like just in terms of our personality, are all like, they're obviously all connected, but they're also all different. And that each thing's going to require, in the same way that I was training my physical body and really getting to know how to do exercises and all this kind of stuff, like I had to really train and like work with my emotional body and my mental body. So like the idea that we're obviously, have layers to us, and that everything needs tending to.
I mean, that speaks to like an awareness of our state of being. Were there any sort of practices like meditation or maybe psychedelics or anything that you use to help connect yourself to these parts that you're speaking of? Like, was there
Mhm.
a practice
Um,
that might be actionable to a guest or an audience?
well, like, yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things. For example, the one I'm thinking of right now is like I to speak to my subconscious and to work with my subconscious. There's so many different types of therapies, right? Like hypnotherapy, EMDR, like things like that like work with the subconscious. But something I do also is I paint tarot keys, which are like these archetypal images
Hmm.
of like sort of it's a language directly for the subconscious, because the subconscious speaks and understands symbols, colors, these kinds of things. It's not so literal. So it actually takes in the color that I paint and the images and actually restructures my subconscious.
That's
But I
cool.
mean, I do meditation.
Hmm.
I went through a stage of mushrooms, ayahuasca, like DMT, like these kinds of things. And all those kinds of vibes, like all those different things you go through. I'm at the stage now where I've just like, I just I meditate in the morning, and I just like really find life to be really dynamic, and I get so much from like just living now that I don't have to kind of do the deep dives.
Hmm.
But trust me, there's a long, many years and hours of like just clearing stuff out,
Yeah.
because we all have stuff to clear out and to like just unpack and all that.
I find for myself, I usually have a lot of different tools, modalities, whatever you want to call it, to actually deal with certain issues I have, whether that's dealing with depression and stuff. And so, for a good example is like meditation really, really helps me personally. But I don't know if it's me consciously or subconsciously doing it. I am so resistant to doing it. I will, for a week, I will meditate well and everything will be getting better and I'll be feeling better. And I'm like 100%, this is the solution to my problem. But then for some reason, I will not maintain consistency and be consistent with it. Something about, the silence and coming to terms with your own internal voice and your own thoughts, the discomfort of that. I just kind of slowly start to avoid it and then push it away and then move away from it. Do you experience something like that? Like when you say
Hmm.
you're doing meditation, is that something that's just natural and you're like, it's just fine, I do my 10 minutes of meditation in the morning? Or is it like, this is a huge monumental task that you have to fight through?
Man, learning to meditate was the hardest shit ever. Like it took me since like earnestly, sincerely was like a like in the same way I get very into climbing or very into anything. I was so into spirituality and like so desiring to meditate and to connect with my spirit and like all that kind of stuff. But it took me probably 6.5 years, 7 years to be able to sit and meditate. And that was like after really, really wanting it, because yeah, there's the mind is active by nature. No doubt. Like even when we're sleeping, it's active. So the hardest thing to do
Yeah.
is to go like to find the stillness within all that activity, that center, right? So I mean, it's tough. Like, I don't know. People think I'm like, I don't know how you just meditate, because that's like one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried meditation, and there's been moments where it's been good, but I struggle with the silence. For me, what has been helpful during these moments is more, I guess, affirmation based, but more of a communication reversal. So instead of the subconscious communicating to my present being and how I act and how I behave, I like to almost talk back the other way and try to reprogram the language that's coming out. Just it's funny. Like a lot of people, maybe I am crazy, but like talking to yourself, I think is like obviously there's situations where it's not a good thing, but it can be good because you're recognizing that there is like multi dimensions to your brain, and you're able to have a conversation with yourself and try to reprogram what's coming out the other side.
100%.
I also think like cognitive behavioral therapy is like really, really well studied and is essentially, I mean, this is way overly simplistic, but it's like positive self affirmation, right? So you have neurons, and in between those neurons, there's a synaptic connection, which is this kind of space, right? And that's where these neurotransmitters go through. And as you use certain connections over and over again, they reinforce that like a muscle. They get better at firing. So if you have a constant negative internal dialogue or something, this internal voice for yourself keeps happening, you essentially have this neural network through your brain that is really reinforced.
Wow.
And that's like a default that you will actually use consistently, whether you are aware of it or not, and you're actually reinforcing it. And so if you think on it, if you've had like a negative internal dialogue for 15, 20 years, you could use like analogous to that.
It's like rerouting the Interstate 5 in LA.
Yeah, or think of it from a muscle component. Like if you work out a bicep for 15 years, that bicep gets really big and really strong, and all of a sudden, if your goal is now you're like, okay, well, I don't want that bicep to be strong. That takes a long time and a lot of reprogramming and a lot of different work. And I think a lot of times people don't want to or don't view the mind as some form of a muscle that you can train or connect with or work in that kind of a way. But the reality is, yeah, if you have this internal dialogue and you've been communicating like that forever, it's a pretty large task to try and change that. And I think on some level that talking to yourself, a positive self-affirmation, even if you don't believe some of it, sometimes I'll have such a negative dialogue with myself and I'll have to stop and be like, no, and just really like intentionally find that thought, say that's wrong, disconnect from it, and then try and build a new neural pathway and reinforce that positive neural pathway. And I think that's part of what like cognitive behavioral therapy is, right? Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I've never heard it is described in such
sure.
a physical sense where you can actually kind of like visualize what's happening in the brain on a materialistic level. That's pretty sweet. I resonate with that a lot.
Yeah, and like back to climbing, or to bring this back to the climbing community and stuff too. It's like, I think, that saying your vibe attracts your tribe. I think a lot of us come from the same sort of mindset. Like at the beginning, right? Like we've sort of spoken about different things of being whether that's like, secular, or that's maybe not being empowered, or this or that. Like I think I'm also trying to say, like, the mind tools, that's the point of the mind tools and the climbing covers, is like it's to work the mind muscle, so it's stronger, and it's more successful, really, or whatever the word is that you want to use. But it's like it's that repetition.
Yeah.
And like when we're spending so many hours a day climbing, train your mind too, because it's like the mindset, again, like this is the conscious climbing, what I call. It's like the idea, the essence of it. You want to, like, it's the stuff that's in your mind that you want to bring to light, because that's the sustainable part of you. The body stuff comes and goes, like the grades, the muscles, the this and the that. Like it's not sustainable. It's actually very what's the word? Transitory and changing all the time. But it's like it's the mind is the best thing to cultivate, because I believe it's the thing that you carry throughout your whole life.
And I think
So
the mind, I mean, the physicality and the muscles and the movement definitely come through into your life in terms of how you interact with the world in a physical level. But like you're saying, that particular trait is slowly deteriorates. And I think the mind is something, the lessons that we learned in climbing, and this is what we talked about earlier in the podcast, is that these lessons that we're learning are transmissible into so many other facets of our life, and until we pass away, it's something that, like you said, is something we can practice. And looking at these mind tools, I see, I know there are 6 different words that you print. 3 of them are commit,
I got way
focus.
more.
Oh, you
I
have
got
more
like
now.
30.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Your site, I only saw 6. Are you
I know.
okay?
That's all I got up so far.
Okay. Well, I mean, I see commit, focus, and breathe, and I think the other 3 were send. What were the other 2 original ones?
Send it, strength, and commit. Or did you say
I
that
said
already?
commit. Yeah.
Oh, believe.
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 And
Yeah.
I think that yes, calling out those words really speak to kind of what you're trying to accomplish with your product,
Yeah.
and that's having a direct communication with that subconscious mind while you're climbing. It's to have those words flash into your mind while it might be the exact word that you need to hear. Like I can't tell you how many times when I'm trying to like help a climber get through a crux or trying to get them to climb harder, my biggest focus is breathe. I'm like, are you breathing? Big breaths, and like to have that
Yeah.
reminder right in front of you is important. And I think those other words kind of carry on to that. So it's pretty cool. I think that our conversation that we've been having just links so well to this product that you're trying to that you're creating now. So I totally get it.
And like I said, like this product, it's really not. It just is what it is. It really came to me like as in something I just need to bring to life. And but yeah, it's mainly just to help the minds, and because it's that mind body connection. Because we even know when we're holding on to some holds, we're going to make a dynamic move to the next hold. If there's any doubt in your mind, the likelihood of you catching that decreases significantly.
Hmm.
But if you fully believe you're going to go catch that hold, you're going to catch it.
For
Like,
sure.
you know what I mean? So it's like that mind body, the mind body connection, it's real. And so it's like train the mind at the same time, because it's going to help you in everything.
I also think like back to that, an interesting thing if you want to play a game with yourself to really look at this. If you are someone who is leading and you maybe are at a grade that's really difficult for yourself, top rope the route in a really safe manner. And at least for myself, if it's within a certain grade range that I know I can climb, I will top rope it and I will effortlessly climb it and move fluidly and really well. And then when you add the leading component, for sure, placing gear takes more time and stuff, but like it'll take you like 10 times the amount. The fluidity and the way I climb it is not as smooth. All of these things come to light that are huge limiting factors. And so ultimately the question that I have when I experience things like that is, what is limiting me there? Is it actually my climbing or movement? Like I just climbed this on top rope. I could do it so easily, no problem. And then I let it, and it was this really anxious, nervous experience. I was over pumped, over gripped. I didn't feel well. It took me so long at the top. My anxiety was like so high and my nerves were through the roof and stuff. And so to me, the limiting factor there is 100% your mind. When you add fear and that different avenue in there, it's clearly not a physical limitation that prevented you from fluidly and effortlessly moving there. It was all your mind that limited you from doing that correctly. I don't know, correct me if you guys think that's different, but like there's a lot of
No, I
things I
agree.
experience like that, right? And so a lot of the time, the
100%.
limiting factor, as someone who worked in the outdoor industry, like I'm really big into gear, and sometimes I'm like, oh, if I had this piece of gear, or if I had this, or I think of it in a certain way, but or if I just trained harder or this or that. But a lot of the time, the limiting factor is actually my mental state, my mental game. And that's something that I think I focus on less than all of the other 3 of like my technical skills or my physicality, right? So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's where even like the meditation or like the positive self-talk really comes in, because I think the more relaxed we are in general, like the less pressure, expectation, like the less we're worried about what people think of us out there, and like all these kinds of things, they all contribute to like stress in the mind and the body. So it's like the more everything can just open up and relax, like when you're kind of open, and to go back to the meditation part, like when you're sort of like tuned into um you like your insides, and like that sort of peace, place, and knowing that like you're more than your body and stuff like that, I think you open up a little bit more, like in terms of enjoying the experience. But again, it's pretty advanced. Like we have a very, very strong self-preservation instinct, and that's just is what it is. But there's just little ways, like like when I go back climbing now, which I've taken quite a bit of time off, and when I get to go, it's like it's a treat. And the main thing for me is that I'm just enjoying the company. I'm enjoying being outside, and then like I'm really enjoying the actual contact with the rock. And then for me, mind tools just help like to just keep me focused on like the stuff that really matters, not like
real quick. I don't think we've actually like specifically said what this product is. What is a mind tool and how is it used? Like physically, what is it?
It's a slip cover for dog bones. Like, for the quick draws or the cams, it's like, we got all the colors of the rainbow basically. And then just with affirmations, like positive affirmations on them. So again, it's to the subconscious mind, color and symbol basically. So sometimes, people want to know how practical it is and everything like that. Yeah, there's a lot of practicality to it. And I guess, like, I mean, in terms of like keeps your gear clean, differentiates your gear amongst your climbing partners, things like that. You can customize it if you're a gym or a guiding company. I can put whatever word and logo on it. But then it's actually just that subconscious tool.
I'd say
help,
that's the main purpose of it.
Yeah. So you kind of got to feel it, and you got to kind of resonate with it, and it's not going to be for everybody, but
are you thinking of, or are they applicable onto cams of certain sizes?
They can fit on the dog bone, like
of
right.
A cam.
So they
okay,
have any.
Got it.
Yeah, like this part.
Sweet.
So if the camming unit's down here, you just take this off.
Chill.
Yeah, this one says chill. Because sometimes you just gotta chill.
I feel like I could use that one.
Right?
Because I'm like cruxing out, like,
I need my chill quick draw right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I need the chill.
Yeah.
Like the quicker you can relax the nervous system, the better, the quicker you're able to get back into performance, really.
Yeah. That's awesome. I could see someone planning their sport route based on what word they're going to put on each clip. They're like, all right, I need the focus clip for clip 4 because there's a crux. Yeah. I need the breathe one after the crux.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, totally.
100%.
It makes climbing actually really fun, because if you're projecting or something like that, like you can kind of like put them on the wall and you're like talking with your buddy about it, and you can be like, by the blue breathe, like this is the beta here or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
And like,
I think that's
climbing
really cool.
It's fun. It adds a whole kind of another level. Or adds a whole nother like playfulness and like play.
You also get you using language that you need to be talking with in order to properly approach the task at hand.
Yeah, so it's even like intentional. It's like, what's your intention for this climb?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's to be chill. I'm going to clip my chill.
Yeah.
My intention is going to be chill.
Yeah.
Like, it makes it a little bit more intentional. And so then it kind of bridges it, to, I guess you could say, more yoga, where it is more mind, body. Because I'm a yoga teacher too. Like that's like certified, like that sort of background too.
Okay.
But also climbing teams. Like I've seen a bunch of like youth and climbing teams and guides use them and stuff. And that makes me so happy when the kids get to use them and learn to climb with them.
That's actually a really cool application I did not think of. I think that would be awesome.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and by the way, you can get them on the consciousclimber.com or Climb On Squamish or Valhalla Pure in Vernon. And soon Mech worldwide or Canada-wide.
All right.
That's the next one.
Yeah,
awesome.
We'll definitely put these links in the description so people can check them out for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I'm actually gonna buy these for sure. I think they're pretty cool. I've never seen them in person before. I've only been to Climb On a couple times and I didn't see them there. But it's funny. I just had an experience where actually the the route that I originally like had my accident on, falling, my partner Ray, my girlfriend, we just climbed that together over the weekend, and so
Oh,
that was
wow.
like a really big deal for us. And my on-site level for trad at the highest I've ever done is about 10B. I think I can do more. I think I've been limiting myself up here in my mind. But that's my highest on-site level, and this is a 19 pitch climb, and the crux is a 10B at the very top. And so like climbing halfway through, like I was halfway through this kind of roof, and I had this really negative dialogue with myself. I was going, in a bad place. And then I just had this moment of being like, like fuck that, breathe, relax, like stay calm. Like I just started this internal dialogue to myself. And sure enough, like my pacing kind of just changed and everything. And I just, boom, like sent it clean and made it through. And I was just so stoked. And I was pretty beat, to be honest, at the top. I was like half dead, but it really that was actually the difference. Like I was thinking I was going to not make it through this kind of crux, and really just that taking a second, shifting, and having that internal dialogue with myself is 100% what just instantly changed it for me. And it was just like, boom, I know I can do this, made it. And it was all good. So yeah, it was a really, really cool experience. Yeah. So I feel like I could have used one of those climbing covers. I might have come to the realization a little quicker.
Did you bash that granite nub with a cam a couple times as you went past it?
The granite nub?
Yeah, that you broke your ankles on. You climbed right past it, didn't you? Yeah.
Oh my God. No, I didn't, man. Not at all. I just looked right at it and I was like, I can't believe that this happened, And then the anchor's like right above by the area, and Ray was climbing, and I was like telling her, I was like, yeah, and this is what happened. And it really, human memory is pretty finicky and bad in certain circumstances. And there's definitely some parts after my fall that I blacked out on, but being in there and seeing it, I could really remember a lot better. I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what happened and this is what went on. And so it was just really interesting experience. And the pitch is really easy, it was just this really dumb mistake. So it wasn't like I was like cruxing out or something trying to go through this moment. It was just there. It was like, this was so simple. This was so avoidable. And there was something so therapeutic about going through there and doing that. And then also from the component, the lower half of the route was up the apron, super easy. It was pretty cruisy for us. And then the upper half, we did the ultimate everything. And that was like a new route for us. And that's like, for me, like it was a big day out. Right. And so to come back just over a year after the accident and climb like the longest multi-pitch I've ever climbed, and then to have like a 10B crux at the top, it was really this super emotional, like therapeutic thing where it was like, okay, I came back, did the thing that I failed on, came full circle. I was here, I was with Ray. It was just this really important moment. And then it was also just a part of like kind of just showing myself like, like, yeah, you fucked up, but also you put in so much unbelievable time and energy, and mental work and meditation and physiotherapy and yoga and all of these things to get you back and to culminate into this day. And you know what? We just had this great rad day out, and we sent the route, and it was amazing. And so it was really just, yeah, I don't know. Like I was at the top there, and once Ray got up, and like I had like tears in my eyes, I was pretty emotional about it. There was just something pretty big about it. So yeah,
that's awesome, man. I had no idea. That's pretty sweet.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I love that, those kind of experiences.
Yeah, for sure. Ideally, you don't have to have that exact experience.
No. But I mean, you can't make it through life without a hard experience, right? Like those are the hardest things are our deepest lessons generally, like, so we all have those things in life, and really, and that's why also I'm a big proponent of hiring guides and getting in on classes and things like that, and actually getting the education, because there's incredible rock guides out there, like in Squamish and everywhere else, and this is just a shout out or like a message to all like the newer climbers. Just take the time to take a couple of courses. It goes a long way, just so you can, because some of those accidents are human error and preventable.
Yeah.
Some aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just getting the education is really important.
Yeah, mine was very, very preventable. And I think for me, breaking down myself, the largest issue I have is an ego issue. Like, I am not that strong of a climber. I have this perception of myself where, like, I wish I was a better climber. You know, if I go out with like certain people I haven't really climbed with, maybe I get like nervous, or I really don't want to fall at a crux or have this perception of myself. And so there's this really big, like, egotistical part of me that just uh holds myself back and doesn't acknowledge that. And at the time of my accident, I was trying to like pare down my rack and climb light and climb fast and climb harder, and it really wasn't actually my style of climbing. I just had this idea. I was like, oh yeah, if I'm a good climber, that's how I'm going to climb, and at all these things that were kind of driving my motivations and how I was acting. And it really didn't work out for me. And so I think for me, that's probably one of the largest lessons, is that's just something that I struggle with, and I'm trying to reconcile it more and to deal with it and to come to terms with it, right? And I really just wish it wasn't a thing, because I think it's dumb. You know, most of the time, if I climb with people and somebody falls or somebody isn't that good at climbing or something, I don't care at all. I'm so stoked for them. I'm just happy to be out with them. I don't care about what their grades are, what they're sending. I think it's just all about getting out in the outdoors and you know, feeling good and being happy and getting to go experience amazing places. But yeah, when I turn that view onto myself, I don't give myself the same grace at all, and I view myself in a completely different light, in a negative way. And it's it's just it's not great,
Yeah.
you know, and that's something that I need to work on and to fix. Yeah.
Well, when I was at that spiritual school, like another important thing, because like coming out of climbing for so long, I was so identified with what I did, right? My identity was I'm a climber. I am what I
Mm-hmm.
do. And then I arrived there and it like just broke me down. Like my whole structure that I had created had to tumble down and break.
Yeah.
And then you realize you're not what you do. And you hear this all the time, but like, you know, when we go out climbing, what we do for the day on a day of climbing, it's just not who we are at the end of the day. Like it's just not going to matter at the end of the day. Like it's doesn't mean that like it's meaningless or that you don't want to have an awesome climb and progress and all these kinds of things. But I think just a simple reminder of like who you are on the inside is the most important, and just kind of like just taking care of that inside part of yourself is always so important.
Absolutely. Climbing can't define you. At least I don't think it can. There's more to a human than an activity like that. And I too definitely wrapped up my ego and my self worth into the art of climbing, to, you know, pushing grades, trying harder, climbing, being good at climbing. Like that was my focus. And I didn't know where I wanted or what to do with it, you know? And it took my injury completely removing me from this activity to focus on other areas of my life that I clearly needed to work on. And you know, it started this podcast. It's done so many other great things in my life to take my focus away from climbing. It's still there. I still climb. I still love it, but I have so many other things going on that it's not life or death if I can't make it to the crag, or I didn't send the route, or I'm not pushing grades. That's just a much more healthier approach to it.
Yeah. Like I can think of someone I know right now who's like so identified with climbing that I don't think they've really grown in other areas of their life. And like, you know, it doesn't, and I'm just saying that as an observation. It's like sometimes these things come into our life to redirect us so that we do continue to evolve and develop in all aspects. Because if we're just so focused in this one lane, um, you know, I mean, to each their own, and to everybody has their individual path and things like that. But I can definitely see that, like that addict style and that one track mind being detrimental.
It is all absorbing, or it
Yeah, and I
can
think
be.
absolutely. And I think you know, like Kyle said, I completely agree with what he said. This experience, this injury, this podcast has really showed me that there's different avenues to pursue that are also actually in the still climbing related, but like other ways that I can express myself and pursue things, and that I've learned from climbing and that are really meaningful to me. I do think the caveat to that is like, if you are a pro climber and that's all you do and you get paid to do that and that's your living, then, go do your thing. But I think the reality is there's lots of people who are dealing with what we're talking about that aren't pro climbers, that aren't going to become pro climbers. And it's like, is it worth giving up your whole life, giving up all your other creative endeavors, giving up your literal physical body and your health for that? And I think that's an interesting question you might want to ask yourself, right? And that's not me like dissing climbing in any way. I love climbing. I'm still climbing all the time. It's like, it's the greatest thing. It brings me so much joy. But that's definitely something that people want to reckon with, right?
I would dare to say that pro climbers probably feel it the most. Like if they get in an injury or they get a pulley or they can't make it to climbing for some reason, I'm sure that affects them more than, it would you and I, because they don't have a lot of other stuff going on. Climbing is everything to them because it's not only is it their hobby, but it's their well-being. It's how they make money. So much lies on their performance. They might lose sponsorships. They might lose their well-being. They might not be able to climb as hard as they need to or think they need to. And so I'm sure there's a lot of pressure and a lot of an interesting caveat to that, because you have to be so involved to be at the level of performance that you're at.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think the only difference is that they can afford to be all encompassing, because
True. Yeah.
If they throw everything into that, the fruits of their labor are in some ways paying off, right?
Yeah.
Me, if I kill myself climbing 10C, I don't really get much out of that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people not going to be super happy with that, So yeah, a little bit of a difference, but I feel
sure.
I get what you're saying totally. I couldn't imagine being a pro athlete and popping a ring finger, and just seeing red. Yeah.
Yeah, it's to be a professional in this industry, it's unlike other sports like snowboarding or skateboarding or basketball, any of these other sports that have like huge industries and things like that. Because we go as hard as like any other athlete, really, but it's not it's in its own kind of category, which is funny. But even as a guide, it's such a hustle. It's such a grind to make it to be professional within climbing. It's but also, yeah, to the part of being pro, it really became clear to me. I'm like, that's not my destiny. If I was meant to be a pro climber, I'd be a pro climber, but is not my destiny. So I just was like, hey, time to change lanes.
It's good to have that realization as early as possible.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think that's an interesting segue, though. Just like talking a little bit about your experience becoming a guide. So it sounds like you're not guiding anymore. Is that correct?
I could still go and do some teaching, but top rope, like single pitch. The industry, like to really be a guide, like you got to be on your game. Like you got to be current with all the different configurations, because people will be coming to your class and they'll know more off of YouTube than you do. And they'll stump you and you're like, so like to really be a guide, like I give so much props to all the guides, because like you got to be physically fit, you got to know your shit, and you got to be good with people. And it's very, to me it was very draining. Like it'd be like 8-9 hours pure talking, teaching all day. And then after that, I didn't want to go climbing anymore. I didn't want to put my harness on. I didn't want to put my helmet on. I didn't want to go climbing because I was in it all day teaching. So, when you make your hobby your job or whatever, there's real truth to it changing. And so, yeah, I could teach a little bit like single pitch, but I live in Vernon. Like I have Cougar Canyon, which I love. It's like actually really sweet, but I don't live around like an established place with like a guiding company that I could just go work with or something. But I did climb in Squamish like last week or whatever, and it was amazing. Like it felt so sweet. I was just like, wow, this is like trad climbing is just like the sweetest.
It's so good. It's too good.
Yeah.
Was there any route that like stuck out to you that you enjoyed that you climbed a lot in Squamish?
Um, well, multi pitches were my favorite. So like liquid gold, that one just sticks out for me. Like photophobia. Um, uh, the Grand Wall always scared me. Um, I love everything on this Slahani. Like the Great Game was like my favorite. Those kind of routes, like, they were my favorite.
Yeah, the
Mm.
ground road's closed because of all the rockfall and stuff. It's a little tragic.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're ever gonna open it up. I don't really know how that's gonna go. That was one of my dreams, was to climb, the classic, the split pillar and the grand wall and stuff, to work up to that. But it's like, from a geoengineering perspective, I don't really know if they're ever gonna open it up, right? So it's
Again?
interesting.
Like ever?
I don't know. I'm ignorant on this aspect. I know there's someone at SFU who's currently studying it, and we actually want to get him on the podcast and talk to him about it. But yeah, I don't see why it would be safe to climb. It's just a massive series of huge flakes that are unstable everywhere, that has perpetual rockfall happening. So maybe this is my ignorance. I would love to talk to someone and be more educated on it. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, like, some of the rockfall that's happened in the last year and stuff is like a massive section of the Black Dike just fell off. Like, did you see that? Have you seen any of the pictures of it or anything?
I've seen a little bit in the feed and stuff like that, but I haven't dived too into it. But because I'm just like amazed, because yeah, like over the last 3 years, there's so much um stuff that's come off, and you see it all at the bottom. Like back when
It's
I was
crazy.
there, it was to the left of Angel's Crest. I think by the sheriff's badge, like this huge chunk came
Yeah.
off. So man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm really fascinated by that and really want to talk to somebody about it. So also just kind of geek
Yeah,
out
really.
on rocks. I don't know that much about rocks, and I'd love to to have someone to talk about rocks with.
Totally.
They're definitely in
Yeah.
motion.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I guess maybe we'll all be boulders in the future, because there'll be like
No
all these,
mountains
new,
left.
new boulders.
Hey, well,
I'm
Everest is
not
still
gonna lie,
growing, so
breaking both your ankles makes falling from high distances a really bad idea. So bouldering is
Out
a
of the
pretty
question.
big no-go for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really bad idea. And also something that I've discovered since doing this podcast and since following a lot of SAR feed is, there's a lot of boulderers that break their bones, like a lot of bones falling off of boulders, and not even high balls. Like, we've had people who have reached out to us that have shattered their ankles or their bones. Josh Reinig, he fell bouldering in like 20 places, like splintered his tib fib, I think. Like, and he's a guide. Like, there's just, I don't think a lot of people think about that, but like, they're like, oh, bouldering, it's safe, or oh, it's in the gym and you're good. And like, I also know 3 people have broken their ankles in bouldering gyms. It's like the the casualty pile seems pretty high.
Well,
here.
I think that the thing with bouldering is impact is a constant thing, whereas climbing, it happens occasionally, hopefully.
Best, because you can just put your gear where you want it, and it's like yeah. And I mean, you just like, sometimes when you're like, I never really bouldered, but even sport climbing would be tough sometimes, because the bolts would be like
Just a little too far.
just right out of your reach or something like that. Maybe that's what I like about trad, is you can just kind of customize it with the protection where
Yeah.
you want it and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Except for those obligatory runouts.
Right. Well, that's where mind tools come in, because
Yeah.
you just go believe,
Exactly.
Believe.
trust, commit. You just repeat the mantra.
Yeah.
That's it. Chill. So yeah, what's your guys' plans for the summer, anyways, with climbing and stuff?
All right. Okay. I have some plans. So we just climbed the ultimate everything. That was like the big, like, coming full circle. I'm doing a whole bunch of cragging this weekend. Monday, I'm actually, I'm hiring a guide, and I'm going out with a guide for a day. I'm going to go climb Angel's Crest with him. And
Yay.
I'm just doing it to kind of like spend a day with him, move really efficiently in the mountains, talk about like gear placement, anchor, look at like just drag mitigation, look at placements, talk to him about safety, just totally spend a whole day out moving efficiently and just picking his brain as much as humanly possible. So far in pretty much every rock median, so like ice, mixed, and alpine, I've spent a day out with a guide doing that. Actual like just pure rock climbing, I've never spent a day out with a guide doing that. And so for me, I was kind of like, I'm gonna do that. And then the weekend after that, we're gonna go climb Slessie, most likely in 2 days via the like classic Becky route and on the northeast buttress. And then after that, we're gonna go do Rainier, Baker, and Shookstan. And so and then in September, depending on how things work out, ideally get some more climbing in. So just pretty much every single weekend. And I have one last ambitious goal, which I don't know if I'll be able to do, but I live in Horseshoe Bay, and so I wanna bike to the base of the Chief, and then I just want to run a lap up the apron and up the Bud Light, and then walk off, and then ride my bike home, and that'll be a big day too. So those are my goals for the summer of what I'm looking to do. Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked on that.
Awesome.
Stacked, man, stacked.
That's all.
Yeah, I have quite a smaller list. I'm going out with Josh Reinig. He actually was just on the show. I met him like probably 8 or 9 years ago. He's an American Alpine guide, and he kind of offered me an apprenticeship almost. So I'm gonna go down there this weekend and do like a weekend session with him to go over the holes in my climbing experience. Probably take me up some routes, kind of shoot the shit and teach me as much as he has to offer, with the inevitable goal to go to the Incredible Hulk and do the red dihedral followed by positive vibrations. That will probably either be in the spring or later in this season. And then in September, at the end of the month, actually this guy named Joey Latina on Instagram, he reached out to me. I lived in Vegas for a while, and there's a route called the Original Route on the Rainbow Wall in Red Rock Canyon. It's like I think it's a 15 pitch 12A at its hardest crux. And so basically he's going to just drag me up that, and I'm going to top rope the whole thing and see if I can get up through all the crux pitches and stuff. So that's my to-do list. And then Rainier, if we can make it happen with Max, we can actually have like a reuniting and actually meet, since we've created this podcast, we've never met each other in the flesh.
Yeah.
And see if we can tackle Rainier together. It'd be quite the story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm also, I am still trying to look at flights to fly down and climb with you, Kyle. I want to try and make that happen as well for a weekend, man.
Super down,
that's
dude.
Also in the books.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots to do down here.
That's it. So
I'm working on erasing my past so I can come up and visit you, but it's going to take a little bit.
It does.
Yeah,
it's worth it.
Erasing your past. Oh, okay, I get it. I was like, what do you mean the barrier? I was like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah,
I've got a legal barrier on the border. Yeah. You Canadians they've got some strict rules for us delinquent Americans.
Yeah, I know. We don't like fun up here, apparently.
Well, those sound like amazing goals or objectives. And Max, that's so cool. You're climbing with a guide. That's really awesome. And that you're going to do the Northeast Buttress on Slessie, and that you're giving yourself 2 days to do that. Smart.
Yeah. We were looking at the book and the 16 to 24 hours, and we were like, the chance that we're on the 16-hour mark is not very high. So I think we'll be low and slow. Have you ever done it?
Yeah, it's big. It's long.
Oh, sick.
Yeah,
and the descent is long. But I heard that the descent has been updated, like as in more direct. But like literally getting off and hiking back around, because we camped at the propeller cairn, like at the base kind of thing. And then went up from there. We brought like kind of one sleeping bag, one pad type thing. We didn't really think we were going to spend the night, but we were like in a party of 3. And but it's awesome. Just obviously get a really clear, great weather window, and you're going to have an amazing time. It's epic.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I've heard to expect is pretty much enjoy like a 5 to 7 hour walk off, extremely dehydrated. And I was like, all
yeah.
right,
Oh my
yeah.
god, it took us so long to descend and then hike back. I remember it was like a death march, like
Oh man.
literally
Yeah.
felt just like pushing through, and it was like we got back at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something, and then I woke up like the next morning, like in my sleeping bag with my jacket on, like no pants, like so dehydrated. Like I was like, where was I last night? Like it was just like so epic, like in terms of long and longer than I thought. But that was just our experience.
That's cool.
But
Yeah.
Days like that are magical.
I'll erase that part from my brain.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
it's the walk off's great. It'll be easy. It'll be fun.
well, it's totally beautiful, and like it's an amazing adventure. It's going to be such a memorable climb and experience for you. Like it's an epic, beautiful place. Did that pocket glacier slide or whatever up there? Have you heard about that?
I haven't. No. Did it like this year? You mean, or in general?
I don't know what the conditions are these days, but like back in the day, a little while ago, is like you wanted, there was like this sort of glacier that you needed to kind of skirt in front of to get to the toe of the buttress, and people would wait till that slid to get across because there's this kind of this sea of like slab you need to go through to get to the base. But people would always used to pay attention to that glacier. I'm not sure the case is nowadays, but anyways,
Okay,
just
I'll look into
throwing
it.
that
Part
out
of my
there.
plan as well was on the walk off of my day with Angel's Crest with the guide was just to pick his brain on Slessy as well too.
Yes.
So maybe I'll have
Yeah.
a chat with you personally as well. That would be great. Yeah. But yeah, we've just been working our way up with progressively longer and bigger days.
Nice.
Awesome. And Kyle, you going to the Hulk? That is super sweet.
Yeah, it's
I've never been
no.
there, but it looks amazing.
It looks amazing. It looks tough and sustained. It's been on my to-do list ever, like even before my accident. So I just got to come first circle and get strong and just feel confident in my ability to protect myself. Because lately I've been feeling a little nervous because I'm a heavy climber. I'm like 197 dry, and with a rack and a backpack, I'm like 215, 220, and so it's a lot of weight thrown around. So I got to like take that into consideration, and that's part of what I'm trying to learn from this guide this weekend is just like, how cautious do I need to be? What should be my strategy as a heavy climber to be protecting myself? Like how much run out for a small piece is acceptable, stuff like that. So I can feel more confident.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. You're doing a route called Good Vibrations or something?
It's called positive vibrations. It's like the
okay.
the route on the Hulk.
You got to bring mind tools for that and get pictures.
For sure.
Just
that
saying.
would be good. That'd be great. That'd be great.
And like the rainbow wall you mentioned, the rainbow wall.
Yep.
Mind tools, we call it the rainbow rack.
Okay.
So yeah, just these are places you need
Nice.
to bring them.
I like your business mind. It's good. That's what you need.
It's just meshing them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I personally resonate with that, Kyle, where it's like I'm also a heavier person. Like right now, I'm probably about like 195, 191. My weight fluctuates quite a bit, and so I know for myself, like from your experience, seeing lots of videos on Whipper Media of people just like pulling cams and stuff, and I've also had friends who've had experience of like multiple pieces pulling and decking, and so I know for myself, there's lots of times where like even on easier trad climbs, I'll be pulling a bulge or something. And I'll have a good piece in, and I'm like, well, this piece is like, I'm fairly confident that if we were running a simulation, this would easily hold my fall. But I'm sitting there going like, okay, but it's one piece. And if the piece pulls, you're decking like a ledge or a ground fall. And like, do I really want to bet my life or my spinal cord or anything on one piece? And my answer is no.
Yep.
It's not yes anymore. And I think sometimes it's really easy to conflate climbing videos you see of people climbing really vertical rock. And they have the affordability of if a piece pulls, they still have another 30 feet to fall and it's clean. You know what I mean? But when you're climbing 5.9 or certain 5.10s or Chaussee or Alpine or something, and there's ledges and boulders, you don't have that affordability. It's game over if a piece pulls in certain situations. So yeah, I've definitely I'll double up. I'm pulling the crux. I'm like, oh, I know this piece is gonna hold. Doesn't matter. I'm putting in another piece. I'm making sure it's bomb or it's good. I'm like, I'm 200 pounds. I'm
Yeah.
falling. If this piece pulls, my life's over. I'm not okay with one piece being the determining factor between me and that experience.
For sure. I think that the problem is that I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my lack of experience or the routes that I'm choosing, but there's definitely certain situations where it's like, that's the piece you get and there's nothing else. It's like, and sometimes it's a black totem and that's all you get for the crux. And it's just like, well, fuck, like this is what I have to trust. And there's a point in climbing where you just have to be able to not fall, I'd say, and it's a balance of climbing within your abilities and pushing your limits. You got to know where that is so you don't get it in over your head on bad gear, because bad gear is inevitable when you're trad climbing. Unfortunately, it just is. Sometimes it's just not, there's not another option. And so if you're in that kind of situation, you better be climbing well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sort of speaking from a female perspective, like sometimes when you're in partnerships and you're the girl or the woman, you do a lot of following and seconding trad, which is actually great experience. Even just, first of all, just getting really familiar with crack and moving on it, but even taking out the gear, getting familiar with the different placements and all these kinds of things. But then, and then also when I'm on lead, I'm not afraid to also back clean, double up, and then reach back and grab it if I got a long route and I need to take something. Sometimes my voice is like, don't do that. Like that's like bad style or something. But I'm like I've definitely, I rather be safe, especially if I know there's a decking potential. I'll put in like definitely 2 pieces, even if I got to reach back and grab one and take it out. But just lots of placements. And even with me being scared, it made me overplace. But now I'm like really good at placing gear because I place so much, and like got used to putting it just about everywhere. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
It's part of the fun. It's part of the fun.
I recently had that on the ultimate everything. There's this like pretty straightforward, but like this like weird 5'9" like bulge, and it's like a small roof section that you have to pull onto, which was super awkward, and it was just like this total fall that would have been decking, and I had one cam in, and I was just sitting there like, I'm just not cool with playing this game, and so I'm like sitting there, in this terrible situation, trying to place a piece, and then like I it was the wrong piece, and of course like I'm like, oh, like fuck, and then like pull that piece, and then eventually I got the next piece, and then I pulled through, and it was not very graceful, and then I was up there and I did the same thing. I like reached down and back cleaned a piece and then popped it up higher, and it was just this like whole ordeal and not very graceful, but it was the right thing to do.
Exactly.
It was like, this is what needed to be done to actually be safe, and
Yep.
and it probably made the pitch 40 times harder, like hanging out there, like in the crux, terrible move, trying to place and everything. But it was like, it's still like, okay, like that was the right thing to do in my estimation, right? Like, I know I could have just cleanly pulled this and done, but in the off chance that I didn't, it wouldn't have been the right call, right? So yeah.
Absolutely.
Progress, not perfection.
Yeah, exactly.
You just gotta
exactly.
Climb another day.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just get better over time, but it just takes a lot of time to get there and all that. So yeah, it's all good. You climb your own route, do it your own way, kind of thing. And yeah.
Nice. Well, awesome. Max, do you have anything else?
No, I'm pretty good for right now. Yeah. I don't
Catherine?
know. I think we've had a pretty interesting conversation, and it's been good.
It's been super nice.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think I think that was pretty good. I mean, that's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I feel I there's like so many more tangents we could go on, but like I feel like we did a lot, and I feel satisfied with it. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Awesome. Yeah, no, totally. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks so much for reaching out. And I really do mean it. I'm already looking at Climb On. I'm gonna buy a couple Mind Tools. I'll put them on, and I'll have to send you a picture of it. So
yes, please do.
Yeah,
and,
we'll do.
And you're gonna meet people. Will start talking to you and asking you about them, and like it's just a good icebreaker and everything. So yeah, I hope you enjoy them.
Is it better if someone buys directly from you and your company, or does it not matter to you? You're like, doesn't matter. Buy from Mac, buy from Climb On, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It really
Yeah.
go support Climb On. I mean, if you're not in Squamish, then you can go to the website, and I'll be putting the new ones online soon. We filmed a cool commercial in Squamish the other week,
Oh,
so
yeah.
hopefully that'll be out like online and whatnot soon. So yeah.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, then I guess that's it. Yeah. Like I said, thanks so much, and really nice talking to you and everything. And hey, I actually will personally contact you if that's okay. I would love to pick your brain a little bit more about Slessy, probably like just before I go do it. That would be really helpful if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you what I remember, and I can send you some pics. But yeah, it's just as long as you just take it one step at a time, go prepared, knowing that you'll probably spend the night out there. And the main thing is just get a great weather window, and then bring the right snacks and hydration to the best of your ability. And I don't know who your partner is, but just having a partner you're comfortable with and all that. But you made the right call with connecting with a guide too. Just you'll have so much more confidence in, like you said, moving efficiently and those efficiencies, because you definitely want to be doing that on a big route like that. And the route finding, but the route finding on that one, but that's that intuitive side, and then just read some beta and all that before, and bring some beta with you. And yeah, I can't wait to hear how it goes. And yes, you can reach out after.
Yeah, that's the game plan. You can be my support group when I have to talk to you about the trauma of walking off.
Yeah, I'm so interested in how your descent was. I just remember it being so long. But,
yeah, that's what I've heard. So
such an amazing area.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, you take care and have a great evening, Catherine.
And thank you guys. Thank you so much for holding space for these conversations, right? Like you were talking about full circle moments. To me, this is very full circle for me. So, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I know we'll definitely connect again in the future online and stuff like that. And as well, if you're ever coming by to Squamish or anything like that, it'd be really nice to meet you in person and get to climb with you. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Sweet. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Sweet.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Take care.